Over the years, there have been tons of times when boxing legends have called each other out, leaving fans shocked. Here are some of the biggest incidents, starting with one of the most notorious legends, Paulie Malignaggi versus Adrian Broner. Fans have always found his style of nasty language to be very entertaining. It's direct, frank, and unconcerned with what you may think of it. Malignaggi has a special talent for crafting words. He has the ability to skillfully combine biting one-liners with intelligent but frequently no less biting insights in order to put his opponent off balance. His utter lack of self-control has frequently gotten him into some pretty tricky situations, especially when talking about the sometimes shady world of boxing politics that keeps boxers ahead of or behind in the game. An example of this is when Malignaggi called out Adrian Broner. He said that Adrian was nothing more than a Floyd Mayweather wannabe. Broner not only fought like him, but he also talked like him too. In fact, Paulie went as far as to say that Adrian literally breathed like him. This meant that Broner lacked his own character and was in dire need of it. Yikes. Now, that's a call-out if I've ever seen one. Paulie's dislike for Broner didn't end there. He also said that in every city gym, there's an Adrian Broner. That kind of individual may be found anywhere. Paulie didn't find Adrian to be special or unique at all. He just felt that Broner was the kind of guy who copied others that were better than him. All these comments were obviously very controversial. Speaking of controversies, this next boxer definitely sparked some with his comments. Let's talk about the time Jack Johnson went up against Tommy Burns. Nearly everyone believed Johnson to be his biggest threat when James J. Jeffries won the heavyweight title at the turn of the century. Black and white boxers may compete, although at the time the heavyweight championship was only open to white fighters. Immediately following Jeffries' retirement, Canadian boxer Tommy Burns won the world title. By traveling to several continents and looking for the greatest boxers he could find, Burns turned the title into a true global championship. Burns ultimately agreed to give Johnson a chance to compete in the global championship in Sydney, Australia, after Johnson essentially stalked him for 2 years while calling him out. As was his habit, Johnson insulted his opponent during the bout. Nothing particularly heinous or disgusting, as fans frequently see now, but dangerous nonetheless. According to Nigel Collins of ESPN.com, Johnson said to his opponent, "Poor little Tommy, who told you you were a warrior? Every time he landed a blow, he would typically meet with fake praise." He'd say stuff like how Tommy was a miserable thing and that he probably learned how to punch from his mother. Yes, it's gentle by today's standards. Johnson, though, was a forerunner in the field of boxing and calling opponents out, so context is important. Trash talk and calling others out can be used as a way of entertaining others. Evidently, this was the method used by Prince Nassim Hamed. The fact that he was a tremendous fighter gets lost in his flamboyance, trash-talking skills, and volatile personality. He had a 36-1 record with 31 knockouts, including a perfect record in world title fights and 3 world crowns. His American debut matchup with Kevin Kelly in December 1997 remains one of the most thrilling matches in history. He didn't really care what you thought about him to boot. He intended to use derogatory language before, during, and after the battle, and he was going to make sure you knew it. Hamed was one of the most arrogant and charismatic fighters to ever enter a boxing ring, since it was just a perpetual cycle for him. Aside from his extraordinary athletic skills, Hamed was special for his capacity to make people adore him or loathe him. Nothing that even came close to moderate ground existed. It just didn't exist, and it still doesn't, more than 10 years after his final fight. With equal parts self-promotion, haughtiness, and mild contempt for anybody who dared challenge his reign as the featherweight champion, it's safe to say that Hamed's predilection for the spectacular was a mixed bag. The next fighter is as skilled at throwing punches as he was calling out others. Roy Jones Jr. With all due respect to him, a future Hall of Famer, the term shameless promoter is frequently used when discussing the former pound-for-pound champion of boxing. When he was at his best, Jones had blazing fast reflexes and an amazing propensity to deliver punches from improbable angles. Along that, a savage tongue that viciously boxed his opponent's ears. At times, he was so well-spoken that you weren't even aware of his insults. As he has aged and grown more delusional about his fast-deteriorating in-ring skills, Jones had regrettably started to experience foot and mouth illness more frequently. Jones was almost unbeatable as a boxer, but not the circus he has now become. But he constantly came under fire for not picking the greatest bouts. Few topics bothered him more, and his trash-talking reactions to those kinds of queries were frequently epic. Jones Jr. detests being mistreated and insulted. Even further, he created his own rap song, "Y'all Must Have Forgot," which pays respect to his career successes and perceived slights. Now, it is awesome all by itself, but it's still no match for this next fighter who frequently called out others. James Toney. He deserves to be included on any list talking about the best callouts in boxing because he has one of boxing's all-time great nicknames, Lights Out, and one of its loudest tongues. When asked who would prevail in a battle between Chris Eubanks and Nigel Benn, the incredibly talented Yapper once replied that he'd defeat both on the same evening. Or how about in 1991, when he defeated Michael Nunn in what was likely his most memorable victory to earn his first world title? As soon as the battle was agreed upon, Toney lost no time in telling his opponent what he thought of him. Warning, it wasn't all that great. Lights Out was never afraid to say that he thought Nunn was more of a dancer in the ring than a warrior. Nunn, though, continued to fight beautifully, refusing to give in and crushing Toney with a hard jab and vicious inside punches. The winner had a commanding lead after 7 rounds according to all 3 scorecards. Then Toney made one of the single best predictions and insults in the history of the game. "Son, you're going crazy. You're going crazy." Before the 8th, head coach Bill Miller warned Toney in the corner that he needed to put more pressure on his opponent, and this is Toney's reply. "Don't stress over it. He is not making the effort." He also didn't. In the 11th round, the challenger stunned the champion with a powerful left hook that knocked him to the ground. The fight ended immediately after. Plus, saving the best for last, here's one legend that no one can ever forget. Muhammad Ali. There's only one uncontested master in the world of trash-talking and boxing and calling out others. Although much mimicked, his unique blend of speed, power, and defensive elusiveness has never exactly been matched. However, if it's even possible, Ali's verbal barrages frequently had more impact than his strongest blows. If someone said something even quite as nasty now, the political correctness police would go into a frenzy. Ali's brand of trash talk and calling out others was frequently extremely personal. He possessed the remarkable capacity to enter his opponent's thoughts and hit him where it hurt most. Though it's difficult to pick just one favorite passage from the maestro, he always appeared to wax the most lyrical when referring to his long-standing foe, Joe Frazier. He said that he was going to do something to Joe Frazier that could be against the law. In order to get him out of jail, his attorneys advised him to bring a bail bondsman. Anyway, which of these boxers and their biggest call-out did you find to be the most interesting? See you in the next one.